What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, and I am joined today by my good friend and colleague Ian O'Neill to look back at Cage Warriors 144. Ian is an MMA media member over at SevereMMA.com and the Owl Triangle podcast as well, covering a lot of obviously the Irish MMA, but local European and UK MMA as well. So the best guy to bring on to talk about this card, and what a card it was over in Rome in Italy. And you know, as someone who's been to a lot of the local Irish cards, I know you have too, Ian, going back to the UFCs with McGregor and others on it as well. This kind of, you know, it felt like a smaller version of it. It felt like maybe the Irish card that was on in Cork there towards the start of the pandemic, or just before the pandemic even. It was something special. Italian guys went 8-0 on the night. A real big event for the country. You know, there hasn't been much MMA there over, you know, France and Italy, I think, are kind of really opening up in the last while, and it looks like it's a quality place for MMA. Some very good fighters coming out there, and a very, very good card overall. And it was one, Ian, wasn't it, where the crowd kind of took the cards and made it something special.
Yeah, it really was. And the great words of Mario Ranello, Mamma Mia, what a card, what a night for Italian MMA. I mean, I don't think that there's going to be a pizza safe over there after tonight over in Rome. They're going to be all mad and hungry after getting involved in their camps, and they'll all be celebrating, I'm sure, over a pie over there as well. But look, this was a card for me that kind of snuck in a little bit under the radar, where it didn't really catch my attention until like it was right up on us, and I was like, oh, and maybe me and you were having a conversation about it, as that was like a sneakily good card. And the way it kind of turned out is going to be one that's going to live in the memory, especially in Italian MMA, for a long, long time. All but one Italian fighter won on the card, but we had two Italian fighters fighting each other, I believe. So, they had a really, really good night overall. And, you know, the crowd did build. It was like, I think they were even saying it on the desk. It felt like the crowd was closing in on them all night, and you could kind of feel that energy inside the cage as well. And the fighters are really, you know, getting something from that crowd, obviously enough. It was just such a big night, highly anticipated over in Italy, obviously. And like you said, you know, Italian MMA hasn't been having the best run of luck lately on a kind of an international scene, or even on a European scene as well, where, you know, there's the emergence of a star is kind of lacking a bit. Obviously, you have Marvin Vettori in the UFC and everything like that. But, you know, this was a really breakout night for Italian MMA and for a lot of the fighters on the card tonight as well. Yeah,
100%. And I think the phrase you used there, the card built, it really, really did. Because sometimes you go to those events and it's, you know, Paddy Hoolan first fight of the night, and you know the crowd kind of blow their load early, I suppose, for want of a much better term, and it gets it gets a bit quiet, and then, you know, it comes back for the main event and stuff, I suppose. But this one was the one where it was like, oh, is this going to be a good crowd? Oh, this is a good crowd. Oh my God. And by the main event, it's like, this is an unbelievable crowd. And the main event really delivered. Look, we have to start with that main event. The crowd are the main story, but the main event, I think, was up there as well. An absolutely unbelievable back and forth fight between Dominique Wooden and Martignoni, Michele Martignoni even. When the full 5 rounds, looked at the start, and I'll run through the fight in a minute, but round by round, but looked at the start as if Wooding was going to have the better of him, especially towards the start of the second round. Martignoni came back, and then kind of he took the fight from Wooding in a massive way. He took everything Wooding had for him, came back with more, and then kind of extended the lead. And it turned into a fight where Wooding didn't go away then, and Wooding kind of came back. Didn't do loads, I suppose, but never went away. But it was a real classic fight. We were on a Q&A the other day, and someone asked us, what's the greatest Cage Warriors fight of all time? Now, I don't think this necessarily is it, but it's up there. It's an all-time classic 5-round fight. I really enjoyed it. How did you find it, Ian?
Oh, exactly the same. And the last point that you made was, you know, it's just so funny that we were on that stream and we were asked that question. We were having a conversation about it. And, you know, while I would agree it might not live up to be the greatest, but this one is going to be up at the top of the tier for fights that you remember, and especially title fights inside Cage Warriors as well. I mean, just a classic fight with bunch of momentum shifts throughout. You mentioned Martignoni was hurt in this round 2 and found his way to come back. Dominic Wooding then from rounds 3, maybe a little bit in round 4, came back a little bit as well, but it just wasn't enough in the end. I think, both these guys put on an absolute war there. They have both of them the heart of a lion, really. We got into a battle of attrition where we found out who wanted it more, and it was Martignoni in the end that really did. And, with Dominic Wooding, there was plenty of talk from the Wooding camp and from Wooding himself coming into this fight about, contracts and stuff like that. And it just proves that you really, really have to focus on the task at hand, or what will happen is what happened tonight, and you'll end up losing it all. And that's unfortunately the situation that Dominic Wooding is in right now. But I mean, the heart of Martignoni to come back from, because he was almost gone. And I don't believe Dominic Wooding was in there believing that Martignoni was going to make it out of that second round, but somehow he did. And, he came back at the later stages of the second round and even recovered then, and then just continued to garner that kind of, momentum as the fight went on. And it was just a tremendous performance. Like when the final bell rang, you could barely hear it, and the referee broke it in, and the roar of the crowd, you could feel the energy through the screen. And I'm not joking, I got goosebumps. I swear to God, that hadn't happened in a while, but normally I get it if I'm watching an Irish show, because you can put yourself there, but you could just feel the energy come through the screen, and I got that. And you could see Martignoni's reaction. It just meant so much to him and to everybody there. It was really brilliant to watch.
I'm pretty sure the timekeeper had to ring the bell twice. I don't think Goddard or whoever it was heard it the first time, because it was like it was ticking down. I was like, did the bell go? And it was like 3 seconds later and it went again. It was that loud. It was really unbelievable. Let me run through the fight quickly here, and then we can maybe talk more about it, just in case people haven't seen it. So the fight started out, and obviously the raucous Italian crowd, they were cheering Martignoni's strikes more than they were Wooding's, but I thought Wooding was landing more, and he was landing really fast, crisp strikes as well. But Martignoni was landing hard as well in that first round. I thought he started to get a little bit predictable, though, maybe midway through the round. Slow enough start from Wooding. When Martignoni went for that takedown at the middle of the round and didn't get it, I know they were saying on commentary, and we'll talk actually about the commentary maybe in a minute, remind me, and if I forget, but they were talking about how the takedown attempt maybe will get Wooding thinking, and that usually is the case. But I think in this one, he was it gave him a bit of confidence that he was able to stop the takedown. And like I talked about it coming in on the betting show, that if Martignoni wanted to win this fight, he'd have to probably push him against the cage for large portions of the first 2 rounds, and he didn't do that, and he still ended up winning it. But that takedown attempt was no good. Big knockdown late for Martignoni. Got knocked down by Wooding late with a 1-2. Got back up, and he was all right towards the end of the round. But in the second round, there was a huge right hand from Martignoni, and Wooding absolutely ate it. Just walked through it. Massive combination from Wooding, and Martignoni was badly hurt. He survived, knocked down again. The fight went to the ground. Martignoni was bleeding bad. It looked like it was all coming from his nose, and I don't know where it was coming from. It was coming from everywhere. Wooding stood up. Big right hand from Martignoni again. And it turned in for the next maybe minute to like an even stand-up fight, where you're thinking like Wooding should be just dominating this because Martignoni got absolutely beat to pieces. But I think it was more Wooding than Martignoni than anything for that next minute. And then Wooding got so tired. I think he I don't know, was it a mental gassing or a physical gassing, but he gassed either way. Martignoni got a big takedown, a massive ground and pound, almost finished Wooding there. I scored it for Martignoni, and I think all 3 judges did as well. From that point on, it was a Martignoni fight. He rushed in the third round. Dominic got the overhook, and he did a good job. Lots of clinching though. Goddard broke it up. Big right hand from Martignoni. Dominic kind of got his second wind in, I thought, in the third round, but Martignoni was landing the better shots then. Dominic did land one left hand, but there was more right hands late from Martignoni. In the fourth then, big takedown as well, and lots of time on top. Not much landed from Martignoni, and the fight got up with like 58 seconds left, and I was thinking Dominic Wooding could win this round here, but he didn't. He didn't throw hardly anything. Martignoni landed the 2 big right hands, and then in the 5th, there's a big flying knee from Martignoni, and I think Wooding was like, oh, we're going to have a fight here. Martignoni dipped straight down, got a double leg, put him against the fence, took him down there. and held him there for long periods, got into the mount, landed a few strikes into half guard, got up, there was another takedown and more control, and Martignoni ended up winning it. It was a fight where there was opportunities, I think, for Wooding after the big opportunities, and he didn't take them. I would say it was an unbelievable performance from Martignoni. I think probably the best he could produce at this time of his career. I'm not sure would I say the same for Wooding. I think he did make some mistakes, and he is a guy, look, that is a really talented guy and still improving, and could have won. That fight could have been stopped in the second round, but it was really, look, the crowd had Martignoni, as you mentioned the word momentum. When he got that momentum back, it was very, very hard at any stage for Wooding to snatch it back, because Martignoni had the advantage in the wrestling, and it was just a fight that it just turned, didn't it, Ian? It just turned to Martignoni, and from that point on, it didn't really turn back.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing to see in that second round as well, with Martignoni so hurt. And like, I thought, surely the referee was about to step in at any stage. The blood was flowing out of Martignoni, like you said, where it was, out of his nose, out of everywhere that it could, it seemed at times. But, the momentum shift, and you come and tell me after watching that event that fighters don't feed off a crowd in the audience, because it definitely happened with Martignoni, and it probably happened to the opposite effect of Dominic Wooding, where he wasn't able to feed off anything. It was that negative energy that was coming towards him, and it's a real difficult position to be in when you're Dominic Wooding and you hurt a guy like that, because you can tell, and we seen in that second round that he put so much in to try and finish the fight as well. So obviously that's going to take away something from your gas tank, but it's also going to take something away from your mental side as well. When you put everything into getting a finish and you don't get it done, it can really mess with you that kind of way as well. And I think it did on both ends of the sticks, where he was kind of asking for questions after that, and how is he going to get Martignoni out of there, and how is he going to stop the takedown, because stopping the takedown was the key for Dominic Wooding in this fight to try and get the win. And he did so very well until he got tired, and until he simply couldn't do it anymore. And that was the major factor in Martignoni kind of getting advantage and keeping that advantage and ultimately winning the fight overall. But a tremendous back and forth fight throughout. Like, I mean, it wasn't a complete domination by any sense of the word. Dominic Wooding did come back in the later stages and had some flashes, landed some good shots. But I think, number one, like, his cardio was gone, his output stopped, and also some of the pop came off of his punches, which can happen if you're trying to defend takedowns on a constant basis as well.
Yeah, I think you make some great points there. Like, I was talking, and I know we have a group over, and I was saying cardio was the biggest factor in this, but I think the point that you made there is a very, very good one as well, like about the power in his shots after the second round, where he didn't really have as much confidence in him. That's actually a great point, because if you look at the success in the first two rounds, or in the first round and a half, I suppose, it was all down to him having more confidence in his knockout power than he was worried about Martignoni's, because he was taking some big right hands from Martignoni, and he was kind of just walking through him and eating him, and he did that for the rest of the fight. But I felt like he lost that confidence in his own striking, while also kind of gassing out. And Martignoni took the fight from him in a lot of different ways. He beat the fight out of him, I think, in a lot of different ways as well. And it wasn't just that, like, maybe we're sounding here like we're talking about, he won it all heart and determination in the crowd. I actually think there was some really smart stuff. Like, a lot of the time where, if I talk about judging, maybe staying on top and not landing much isn't the best thing to do. But if you're ahead in the round, and there's 2 or 3 minutes left and you stay on top, well, you'll still be ahead if you're the one on top after those 2 or 3 minutes. He did that a couple of times during the fight, and I think it was very, very smart and a very interesting thing to do. I saw online afterwards, Caelan Loughran is calling out both of them the winner, but both of them he's fighting Luke Shanks coming up. That's a good fight. I wouldn't mind seeing it.
It's a great fight. Obviously, he has Luke Shanks to take care of first, but the bantamweight division is heating up now in Cage Warriors. We've got a couple. Obviously, we have Dylan Hazan as well, who fought at the catchweight at 140. We'll speak about him later. He's really up there as well. If he shouted for the UFC after the fight, but you could see another card maybe in Italy next year where they might face him and Martignoni might face off. But yeah, Caelan is the major player. He'll want to be staking his claim against Luke Shanks on November 4th. That's a phenomenal fight as well, and not an easy one too. So hopefully Caelan keeps his eye on the prize as well. But yeah, I mean, I just can't give enough credit to Martignoni there. Like the performance, the comeback from adversity, remaining calm and composed in that scenario too is not easy to do as well, because that crowd was wild. It was rabid out there. They wanted it, and you can get drawn into that where we could easily have seen Martignoni get an adrenaline dump, or his gas could have failed him as well if he didn't kind of stay composed. But he did, and like you said, he made the right decisions at the right time and ultimately got the win. It was just a brilliant performance, and Dominic Wooding will take something from that. He will come back strong as well, and I think he'll be back to the drawing board, and we'll see him again, and he's going to be winning fights down the line for sure.
100%. Yeah, I think he'll be back. It's very interesting. You mentioned as well earlier about Wooding's kind of contractual situation where there was talks of him going to PFL. I think, funny enough, they said in the broadcast there was like he wanted to go to the UFC, and I'm like, is that technically correct? I'm not sure. Like,
I think the saying is go and walk before you can run. It might have been asking for a little bit too much. I mean, no,
I think it's more like, I don't think the Cage Warriors broadcast wanted to say PFL. I don't think they wanted to give him any ground. So it's interesting. Like, Wooding's still a very good fighter. He said they were both kind of saying afterwards, let's have a rematch, and I wouldn't mind seeing that fight again in London maybe or somewhere, but it'd be interesting.
I was thinking exactly the same thing after the fight. Is definitely one I'd look back upon, and especially what Dominic Wooding has been able to do as well before this fight, some spectacular knockouts as well. He does deserve that chance if he's willing to take it, and if Martignoni is willing to give it to him, and I'm sure that could happen as well.
I don't think so, but I'd like to see it. I don't think Cage Warriors are going to do it after what has happened over the last couple of months, but that Hazan fight though, we might as well talk about the Hazan fight while you mentioned it there a second ago. Like, okay, I think the Filippis came in at short notice, only a couple of days. Obviously it was a very one-sided fight. He ended it in under 3 minutes, and he got the TKO with a bit of ground and pound and nasty stuff again from Hazan. But his wins before that, beating Scott Malone, beating Josh Reed and others as well. Hazan is like, I think he's a guy. I remember I was previewing one of the cards, maybe with yourself or maybe with Brad, and I remember looking at this guy, and I think he was maybe 5-0 or 6-0 or something at the time, and I saw a few people talking about him, and I went to watch a few of his fights, like, oh god, this guy is flying under the radar here. He goes in, he beats Josh Reed, he beats Scott Malone. He is tonight, okay, we can look and we can see his quality, but this guy is, he calls for the UFC. I think he is a guy who will be in the UFC in the future. He's a very talented guy, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. I have no doubt that we're going to see Dylan Hazan in the UFC one way or another. The path he chooses to get there will be up to him. If he's going to try and push to get there right now, that's one way. Another way is just call your shot for a title. He could get there. He could get to the 135-pound weight limit, and I think he's a real tough test for anybody at that weight, to be honest. Tonight, there was a little bit of a discrepancy in kind of experience and probably in talent too, if we're being fair as well. But you know what? That's not Dylan's fault. I think he went in there. He had a job to do. He went in and got that job done, and he wasn't willing to wait around too much. He set a ferocious pace from the start of the fight, and Jefferson was unable to kind of equal that, and ultimately it was a nasty hammer fist that kind of hurt him. I don't know, it caught him over the eye. Maybe it done some damage to Filippis' orbital bone or something like that, but you could see that reaction, and the referee did a really good job to step in there and call a halt to the action.
100%. A very, very interesting line for that 135-pound division. I'm sure I'll be hearing from Hazan and Galen and Luke Shanks. Galen keeps calling it an easy fight, but that's no easy fight, and if he comes through that, it'll be a massive win. He'll be right there. So I think those two lads will be gunning for that top spot. A very, very interesting one there. Let's talk about the main event, Madars-Fleminas versus Carlo Pedrsoli Jr. We were just talking briefly before we started there about this first round, and it was a very close first round. I thought Madars was winning off the back foot. He was landing some lovely kicks to the body, lovely kicks to the leg, but you look at Pedrsoli and okay, I'm gonna go like the old school scoring system here. He was controlling the cage, he was controlling the octagon and pushing him back, and it was looking to me like this is just a typical Fleminas fight where these lads are coming in with, you know, very skillful, athletic guys, and he's just beating them. Like, he is just beating them. Pedrsoli, even he got a takedown in round 2. He got a Madars, you know, defended him with guillotine attempts. Pedrsoli got into mount from a head and arm choke. Madars scrambled, and he ended up in the mount. Ended up in half guard. You know, it scrambled again, got out of it. Pedrsoli ended up on top. Madars gave him the back, got out of it. But the end of the fight, he gave him the back again, and it was one too many times. And when he got into, you know, gave him the back, gave up that rear naked choke, it was all over for him. Like, I think the problem here for Fleminas was he put himself in too many bad positions too many times. And it usually works out well for him because he's able to fight through. And, like, Madars Fleminas might be one of the best, like, defensive scramblers in the world in MMA. He's absolutely brilliant at it. Like, he reminds me, and this is the greatest compliment I could give anyone, he reminds me of Jose Aldo. He's so good at defensively scrambling, or defensively, just scrambling, I suppose, is enough to say for. But, you know, he did scramble. He did get to where he wanted to get to. Unfortunately for him, he ended up in the rear naked choke. But I think Daniel Strauss said on commentary he was winning the fight until he lost it, you know, and I would tend to agree with that. Now, it was close. It wasn't by any means, you know, a domination for Madars or anything like that. But, you know, this is the sort of fight he's been winning lately, and for Pedrsoli to win that fight against someone as good as Fleminas, I think he deserves great credit for that. But Fleminas as well, he will be back. One of my favourite fighters, one of the guys who does not get enough credit. He really doesn't get enough credit. So, you know, I wouldn't knock him while he's down here after that at all, but a very high level fight and a very, very good fight. I call this maybe the fight of the weekend beforehand. Maybe the main event took it away, but I did enjoy this. It was a very good 2 rounds. What do you think of it, Eno?
It was excellent, yeah. I thought it was like 2 different fights within one fight, to be honest, because round 1 they came out, obviously, you know, and they were very very cautious in their approach, and sometimes you will see that when a southpaw is facing an orthodox fighter, you know, because the similarities or maybe their sparring partners, obviously they would have been sparring with likelihood of facing an opponent, whether they're southpaw or orthodox or not. But sometimes when you get in there, you're maybe, you know, a little bit hesitant to make those movements or to throw those shots. You know, you're kind of, it was a first round of a feeling out process as somewhat, you know, where I do agree with you, Madars Fleminas was working very well off the back foot. The takedown at the end of the round for Pedrsoli, you know, there was nothing, it was just a takedown. There was no real damage. So I don't think you could actually score that in favour of Pedrsoli, but the only way I can kind of describe it is it must have set off something in Madars Fleminas, because when he came out for round 2, the pace was up. He was more pushing forward. He wasn't fighting on the back foot anymore. He was throwing those wild shots. He was getting, you know, and those wild shots led to the clinch exchanges, which led to the scrambles. And, you know, you're dead right. In those situations, you know, in certain sense of the word, you need a small bit of lucker to move in the right direction at the right time. And it just so happened that Pedrsoli found Madars Fleminas' back, like you said, once too often, and was lucky enough there to get the choke on it. You know, you create your own luck as well with the rear naked choke, but it could have easily been Pedrsoli as well. But looking back at Madars Fleminas' losses, he's only lost the really top level competition. You know, Adam Proctor, Mateusz Figlak, Jack Grant have been the only 3 guys that have defeated him. And it's just so unfortunate. One of the best fighters on the Cage Warriors roster that, you know, definitely deserves to be in a title shot, or deserves to have fought for a title. And I mean, he just keeps falling at the final hurdles, you know.
I couldn't believe he was in this fight. Like, so Reece McKee is a champion at the moment, and they've made an interim title fight against 2 other lads. I couldn't believe he wasn't in that fight. He has earned his way there without a shadow of a doubt, but I don't know. Like, obviously they wanted him here. He'll take anyone. And you look at that as well. Pedrsoli's in that mix now. You know, he's right in that mix for a title shot now, or in title contention anyway. So it's a very interesting, very good fight. But I couldn't agree more with you on Fleminas. It's
unfortunate, man. You look, he's 34 years of age now, and I mean, that might have been his last chance to get in there. I wouldn't completely count him out. He didn't get demolished by any sense of the word tonight in that fight, but that's going to be a crushing defeat for him, to be honest, I'd say. And it's going to be a tough one to come back, but, you know, if I had a gun to my head right now, and if I was asked if Fleminas would be getting his hand raised inside the Cage Warriors cage in the future, I would have to say yes.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe it's time for him. You know, I was actually thinking during the fight, he'd be a great guy to get on Dana White Contender Series. I really think he would, because he'd win fights there, and he'd win fights in the UFC if he got in there as well. I truly believe that. If Fleminas went to the UFC, I was saying on the shows this week, I think he'd be a 15-fight UFC veteran and probably win maybe 9 or 10 of those. You know, I really think he'd be one of those fighters.
I agree 100%. Yeah, 100% with that.
I hope it happens.
Yeah. Sometimes you zig when you should have zagged, and you end up getting caught in a rear naked choke, and that's mixed martial arts in a nutshell for you.
Indeed, it is. After that, then the card was very good, obviously, with the locals and stuff, but with Sharia off the card, it turned into, you know, I suppose a long prelims, if you want to put it that way. His teammate Awa Sow got a massive reception coming out from all the French crowd that were there. She fought Jasmine Favero. Favero landed a few shots. Sow got into the clinch. The fight got to the ground, and it was a beautiful straight armbar from Favero. She caught it under the leg, like. It wasn't quite Ronda Rousey versus Kat Zingano, but something not massively dissimilar. Beautiful straight armbar attempt, and a beautiful finish there. You know, I wouldn't say Sow was probably the highest level in the world.
No.
But Favero did a good job there. And as well, you know, the Tyrell Disedni fight. We talked a while ago, and I was talking on the podcast, and I know a few people have been giving out Cage Warriors haven't had many women's MMA fights over the last while. Great to see a couple of them on here, and hopefully more to come as well in the future. The Tyrell Disedni fight, just quickly here before I throw it to you in. Disedni kind of dominated this fight throughout it. She was just so much faster. It was an absolute destruction on the feet for the first round. Looked a bit slower in the second round. Bryony Tyrell just so tough. Just so tough. And that was like the story of the whole fight. Just a really tough Tyrell against a really good Disedni. But, you know, I would say a good fight, you know, a good workout for Disedni. Tyrell, you know, did herself proud, I suppose, in there, and a good win for Favero as well in that one, Ian.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, Favero, I think it was just a classic judo throw into a straight arm lock Americana. Like, I mean, that's judo 101, to be honest. You know, she set her up beautifully for that. A little bit more of awareness was probably needed on the ground for Awa Sow. I think, you know, she should have been expecting that. That's that was one of the first submissions that I learned, but then, you know, you learn a submission and then you learn how to get out of that submission as well. After you learn how to do it, you learn how to get out of it. And, you know, we don't see that too much in professional mixed martial arts, and we don't, because it's a relatively easy sub to put on. It's a relatively easy sub to get out of as well. But you know what? Jasmine Favero, she got that tip toss very quickly, and she locked it on very quickly. So, I mean, it just goes to prove you have to have your what's the word I'm looking for? Your ducks in a row. Yeah, wits about you. That's exactly what I was looking about for there. When that fight gets down, it was an excellent quick finish from Favero. Disedni against Tyrell. Tyrell was like really good fight as well, I thought. You know, we saw Disedni, I believe, in Dana White's Contender Series. She lost this fight against Mallory Martin, so she's trying to forge her path back to the UFC now as well. Lost a very close split decision in her last fight in Aries. So, you know, she looked really good. I do think that she slowed down quite a bit as well. Wondering, you know, she looked very big for the weight, so I'm wondering what that weight cut must be like for her. But it's absolutely great to see women back in the Cage Warriors wearing the yellow gloves again. I couldn't agree more with you on that. And like you said, I hope we get to see much more of that as well down the line.
100%. The three opening fights then on the card, we 2 quick finishes and 1 decision. The Zaccaria Barbu fight ended in a quick heel hook. I went out to get a drink and I came in and there was someone tapping and I was like, "Oh, what's after happening here?" It lasted 64 seconds and a lovely heel hook there. The Dario Bellandi Joan Arastey fight went a little bit longer. That went to the 53 seconds into the second round. Both guys were hurt in the first round at different times. A very, very close round. Bellandi landed an elbow to the back of the head. He got warned from it. They were saying the commentary was like a 12-6 elbow to the back of the head, which wasn't great. I don't think it was a 12-6 though, but there was a late kind of, it was a knockdown, kind of not really a knockdown for Arastey. Might have won him a close round. And then there was an immediate triangle for Bellandi after a takedown, got into the half guard quickly, got into the triangle position and ended up triangling him in there. And then in the Michalak Sabatino fight, Michalak won round 1, massive early combinations, nearly got a KO. Sabatini landed nice knees throughout the rest of the round, was kind of winning that round, and then he won the next 2 in a row. Showed better grappling and transitions in the second round at Sabatino, took the back a couple of times. Carlo, Michalak almost got an armbar at one stage, but not really, and Sabatino in the third round kind of just showed he was a better grappler all around there. So yeah, that was the rest of the card. The commentary. Well, what did you think about Brad Wharton? I think he got the COVID, so he wasn't able to be there.
Yeah, shout out to Brad. I just sent him a message during the show saying that he was missed, and he was missed as well. Credit to the guys who were there. Paddy did a great job in kind of standing in for him, but there's nothing like hearing Brad Wharton behind the microphone. And hopefully he makes a full recovery and we get to see him for the London card on November 4th. So shout out to you, Brad. Hope you're feeling better. Obviously he caught COVID before. He will be devastated to not have been there 100%, tonight.
Yeah, the old COVID's gone around.
It's gone around, all right. It's back around again. It never went anywhere. Really,
no, it did. Well, look, they kind of started slow in the commentary, but I thought the more the show went on, they got better. I actually thought Paddy was very good. Like, I think Paddy probably, and Daniel Strauss and Paddy probably both say this as well, it would have been better if Brad was there to kind of bring Paddy along, I think, a little bit. But I actually I thought Paddy was very, very good. There's, you see different people do commentary on different places and, different fighters, and they don't really take to it and things. But Paddy, you would think Paddy knows how to talk and he'd be a natural, but I think he's talking about judging, he's talking about different positions, he's talking about the technical aspects of the fight were very, very good. I really enjoyed him, and I would like to I'd like to hear him on Cage Warrior shows again. So yeah, I really like Daniel Strauss. Very tough position for him to be put in. He's not the play-by-play guy usually, so I think he did a great job as well.
Yeah, you have to build that. You have to build that chemistry. We know from probably doing loads of contracts. Where am I saying contracts?
Well, give me one.
Talking too much about Dom Wooding there. We did many podcasts together. You build that chemistry, and you know what? When the pressure cooker is there and you're doing it on a live show, a live event, that's not easy to do, but the guys did a fantastic job. With that being said, it's going to be great to have Brad behind the desk for the next one as well, and look, maybe bring Paddy back like you said and have a 3-man boot. I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know where Dan Hardy is these days. I think Dan did a couple of PFL cards, so I don't know if he's with Cage or not, so we'll see how that goes. All right, and Paddy also said a bit of news. He said he's planning on fighting on UFC 282 on December 10th. No opponent yet. So he didn't mention Terence McKinney, but no, I don't think Terence is going to be his opponent the way he said it. He was kind of saying like,
and I think Terence McKinney has just got matched up with somebody.
Oh, did he? Okay,
yeah. Oh, my goodness, and it's a good fight too, but we'll talk about that on another day, they say. We
will indeed, but looking forward to seeing Paddy back, and a great Cage Warriors card. And as you mentioned, the next one, Cage Warriors 145, Jordan Vucinic and Paul Hughes on that one. I'm sure we'll have a preview for that and a few bets for a lot of Irish guys. James Webb is on that as well, and that Kellen Lochran and Luke Shanks fight is on that card as well, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it? So,
yeah, it is for sure, yeah.
What a card that is, and we will be back to talk about that one. But for Cage Warriors 144, we will leave it there. I'm Sean Sheehan. Thank you very much to Ian O'Neill for joining me at Ian O'Neill MMA. Check out the Owl Triangle podcast everywhere you can get podcasts, and check out all his work over on SevereMMA.com as well. Ian, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody for listening, and we will leave it there. We'll see you all next time.